Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're getting into something absolutely crucial. We are breaking down the true cost and honestly, the immense strategic power of genuine independent thought. We'll be pulling some really fascinating insights derived from dark psychology and Machiavellian analysis to explore why most of us actually spend our entire lives living inside someone else's ideas. And, more importantly, we'll talk about how learning to walk alone mentally is literally the only way you can start to see clearly and move through life with real control. So I want to kick things off with a pretty wild question. How much of your worldview did you actually figure out on your own, and how much was just handed to you? Seriously, think about it for a second. Your parents shaped your foundational beliefs way before you even had the capacity to question anything. Then your culture stepped in to define what's normal, and your peers? Well, they were shaped exactly the same way. So at the end of the day, most of what we think we believe didn't come from deep, critical thinking. It just came from mere exposure. If you want to stop renting your mind and finally start owning it, you have to adopt one very specific, non-negotiable baseline, and that is, my mind belongs to me. Stepping out of the cozy comfort of those inherited ideas is the very first step in what is, frankly, a pretty challenging journey. If you are completely sure your thoughts are your own right now, good. That little spark of doubt is exactly where real thinking begins. All right, section 1. Are your thoughts actually yours? Let's talk about the illusion of knowing. Think about the massive difference between blindly believing something and actually thinking for yourself. Blind belief, it's cozy. It offers safety and a sense of belonging. But the problem is, because it's built on a foundation you didn't even create, it is incredibly fragile. The second reality pushes back, the whole thing starts to shake. Independent thinking, on the other hand, does not offer comfort. It offers clarity. And clarity demands real effort. It requires you to separate your identity from your ideas and to look at new facts and simply say, you know what, I could be wrong. And that separation, detaching who you are from what you believe, is literally the only way to actually grow. It boils down to a core rule: truth over comfort, always. Genuine truth rarely comes from a room where everyone is just nodding in total agreement. It comes from that one person who's willing to stop the whole group and ask, wait a minute, does this actually make sense? Moving right along to section 2, why walking alone is hard, or as we call it, the threshold of friction. Look, when you stop just going along with the crowd, you're going to hit 3 major barriers. First, there's a quiet loneliness as you inevitably outgrow your old circles. Second is self-doubt. Without a group constantly validating you, that internal voice is going to scream, what if I'm totally wrong? But the third barrier is actually the wildest. It's our biological wiring. Neuroscience shows us that the human brain processes social rejection in the exact same area it processes physical pain. So that agonizing discomfort you feel when you go against the grain, it's not a weakness at all. Your brain is literally just trying to keep you alive. Okay, section 3. Experience over borrowed wisdom. Let's look at the trial of reality. Here's the thing. You cannot simply think your way to real understanding. Consuming endless amounts of information is totally meaningless if you aren't stress testing it. We call this borrowed understanding. It feels really deep and profound until reality actually hits you. It's basically just information wearing the costume of wisdom. You could read 100 books about failure, sure, but until you've failed at something that truly matters to you and you've had to sit quietly in the ruin of those actual consequences, you only know about failure. You don't actually know it. To build any sort of genuine depth, you absolutely have to endure risk firsthand. Experience is my real teacher. That is exactly what gives people who have navigated real hardship that unmistakable gravity when they speak. Their understanding was earned in the trenches. It wasn't just borrowed from a textbook. All right, section 4. Let's get into the Machiavellian twist of this explainer, the strategic power of independence, becoming unpredictable and unmanipulable. Think about the power dynamics at play here. When a follower interacts with a leader, they are essentially renting their worldview. They're acting like a puppet on a string, which makes them incredibly vulnerable to manipulation. Their blind agreement is really just intellectual laziness wearing a mask of respect. But when 2 independent thinkers engage, it is a clash of anvils. It's totally hierarchy-free. They operate from their own grounded logic, which means they actually sharpen each other through honest, unyielding pushback and real intellectual integrity. The overarching strategic principle here is just fascinating. Every major system out there, society, education, social media algorithms, they are all completely optimized for predictable conformity. But when you start thinking for yourself, you become entirely unpredictable. Cheap manipulation, manufactured urgency, fear-based triggers, they completely lose their grip on you. Why? Because you actually stop to examine the fear instead of just blindly reacting to it. And let's be clear, true independence isn't about being a loud, reactive contrarian just for the sake of it. No, it's a grounded calm. It means flat out refusing to be bullied or redirected by whoever happens to be the loudest person in the room. You just operate by one incredibly simple rule. My mind is not for sale. So, Section 5, Steps to Independent Thinking. Enough theory, let's get into the actual practice. How do we actually do this in daily life? First, you've got to interrogate your inherited convictions. Figure out what is genuinely yours. Second, create a gap. Just pause before automatically agreeing with the crowd. Third, and this is a big one, spend real time in silence without your phone or digital distractions. That is where your actual thoughts live. Fourth, use the real world as a laboratory to test your conclusions. And finally, let your theories be challenged. You have to evolve through your errors. To really embrace this process, you have to completely let go of your defensive ego. Changing your mind when you're presented with better evidence isn't a weakness, guys. It's the absolute mark of a powerful, functioning intellect. Rigidity is just a defense mechanism. Being wrong actually makes you stronger because it literally means you've just taken a step closer to the truth. And finally, Section 6, the price of real freedom. Let's talk about the boon and the toll. Because there's always a price, right? Let's be honest about the heavy burden of true freedom. Look at what you gain. Unmanipulable clarity. You notice hidden patterns. You get immunity to emotional triggers. And you gain absolute strategic control over your choices. But the toll is steep. You are trading the comforting illusions of the crowd for quiet loneliness. You have to live with the constant, nagging discomfort of uncertainty. And worst of all, you take on complete, unshared responsibility for your life. When you fail, you can't just blame the group anymore. It's all on you. So if you take nothing else away from this explainer, remember this. Truth is not something you are magically given. It's something you must ruthlessly hunt down and refine entirely on your own, even when it hurts. You don't find truth by following people. You find it by actively trading the comfort of the crowd for genuine, undeniable control over your own life. As we wrap things up today, I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to carry with you into the real world. I walk alone, I think free. Your mind is the one single thing that belongs to you completely. So ask yourself, are you truly willing to endure the lonely discomfort of walking alone so that you can finally think free? Something to chew on. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll see you next time.